Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the policies, and I will give you a brief introduction what policies are and how to create a policy and have a fundamental understanding about a policy. So let's start by looking at the policies and what they are and how to go about it. Okay, now as you can see, the basically the policy is basically there is a policy. The policy has a package. Okay, in the package of a policy there is a condition, there is a facet. Facet is basically on what you will be creating the policies like database, SQL server, tables, something like that. And the conditions are the conditions you will be using on these facets. And target may be the then there is a target, and there is a evaluation mode, and then there is service restriction mode. Basically, the policies are stored in the MSDB database. So whenever you create a policy, just remember to back up the MSDB database. Let's move to the basic. Well, what are the policy behaviors and modes? Policy have four modes basically: on demand, on schedule, on change, log, not log out, log only. Sorry, it's log only, and on change prevent. Okay, what does it mean on demand? On demand means whenever you create a policy on the demand means you have to run the policy manually. It doesn't run automatically. Okay, the policy is created as disabled, but however you can evaluate at them at any time. What it means, though it is on demand, which means you have to run it manually, but however you can evaluate them if you want. On schedule, on schedules. Okay, on schedules, what it means is that you can evaluate on the time defined by in a schedule. If you have already have a schedule, you can choose from them or create a new one, which means whenever you're executing this on the schedule, it will be getting executed on that specific time, day, or the day of the week, depending upon what you have to set the parameters there. Again, on change, log only. What happens is that even though the events violates the policy, the event would be allowed to complete but will be locked in the event locked and the MSDB database. What it means is that though the event actually is violating the policy, it will be allowed to complete it, but however there would be locked information in the event log and the MSD database also. This method, okay, on change prevent, if you go to the last one, this is the mostly we actually would like to use in most of the circumstances, not on every, but this is the most important one. This method will evaluate the policy based upon the event making the change to the target and will roll back any transaction that violates the policy. What it basically is that suppose that certain things that is violating the policy, okay, anything that's, and if it has on change prevent, that will be rolled back completely. Like maybe you have a stored procedure which you if you have a naming convention with the standing for USP or something like that, and somebody is trying to violate that policy, it will actually roll back that stored procedure, creating stored procedure because the naming convention doesn't match, the procedure, doesn't match the policy that you have. So because the policy is on change prevent, so that stored procedure will be rolled back. That was an example of the on change prevent. Okay, basically when you see the SQL Server Management Studio, you can go to the management part of it, and when you expand the folder, you will see the policy management, condition, facets. These are the policy we are created. Policy, before we create any policy, we have to create a condition on it. Or we can create the condition on the policy itself, but the correct way would be to create a condition first and then create a policy. And then this is the facets, basically if you look at there are a lot of facets like backup device, body, databases, all these things are there. you have to look into details. There are a lot of facets, and you can create depending upon what type of policy, upon what facet you want. Let's move to the next. Okay, the server restriction. Okay, what is the server restriction? Server restriction is nothing but the condition that you use to exclude the server from evaluating those policies. Okay, this is basically what you call restriction. If you do not want certain server to be into that category, to be the policy should be actually evaluating on that server, you can always exclude that server. Now, what's the policy basic management? In a SQL Server 2000, easier to use and enforce the policy management. Okay, categories are local grouping to help you manage one or more policy that helps the policy enforcement. For example, you can create a group of policies to run against a database or server. Now, we will start creating the policies, and we'll see. Basically, whenever you create a policy, you are not going to keep on sitting on the server and keep on monitoring the policy, whether the policy is something is violating the policy. Basically, you can create an alert, and the alert will send you a message that some policy has been violated, and then you can, looking at the alert, you can try to solve the issues whatever has been raised. Now, first, before you creating a condition, creating a policy, we should create a condition. Not necessarily that way, but usually. Now, the new policy you created are stored in MSDB database. Make sure you backup the MSD database. Once you back up though you have backed up the MSD database, it's always better if you export the policies also. That would be better. Now, view depending policies. Okay, now whenever you create a policy, first time create a condition, on a condition there are many dependent policies. Once you create a condition, and after that, once you create a policy, you can look, and once you go and double click the policy, you will be able to look at the dependent policies on that condition, which means that there are many policies that are using that condition. They are dependent on that condition. The policies are dependent on that condition. The dependent policy page will show you all the policies that depends upon that conditions. Okay, now log file viewer, we will look at these things. Nothing but a history. Again, importing policies. I'll come to it. Okay, let's start importing policies and then exporting policies, and what else is there. We will come to it later, and I will just show it to you basically. Okay, let's minimize this thing. This is the SQL Server. If you see it, I have put the database into the read-only mode. Let's make it task options. I will go and select it to the put the options. I'll go and make it to the false, so it doesn't become read-only right now. Right, click OK. Now that we have a database already there, which is a normal database, and I'm going to create a policy. Before I create a policy, let's actually collapse all these things, and we will go to directly only to the management. Here is the management. Here are a lot of facets. You can see there are a lot of facets: tables, triggers, table options, users, and many others. These are facets, and these are the condition. These are the condition actually we create, and these are the policy we can create on it. I have created one condition that takes the full recovery model of the database. Okay, I'll just go and open up this thing, and it says the condition, it says is the recovery model equals to full. What I am checking with this condition is that I want that all the database should have a recovery model to be full. That's the condition. I will show you how to create that condition. And I have another condition also, which I created later, that read only equals to true. Okay, what is this? This is actually excluding the database, which is like read only equals to true database. Suppose there were a database which did not have a condition like they were only for read only, they did not be in the full recovery mode. So read only true equals to true should be excluded from checking the full recovery model of the condition. Okay, let's go and actually create a new condition, but very similar. I will create it. I will not delete them. So I will say full recovery. I'm creating a condition now. Recovery model 2. Okay, I've just given a name. You can give any other name if you want, depending upon what you are creating now. I am going to create the, because I'm going to check that every database is in a full recovery model. I will have to check I will choose the database from this option from the facet, and I will from the field I will choose the database recovery model. So I have to find where the database recovery model is. As you can see, I can have to go to the database recovery model, and is the database schema, database login, recovery model. Okay, now I can check it. So the recovery model has to be full. Once I select it, will give me all the three options: bulk, log, simple, and full. So in this case, I'm going to select the full, and I will put the description here. Check the recovery model of the database. It is full. Database full. I'm going to click OK. Now that I have created a condition, full model recovery model, now I can create a policy based upon this condition. So I can go and create a new policy, and I will say the new policy is check database recovery model. Now it will ask me to choose the condition. So I can choose the condition from here. This way I will choose the condition from full recovery model 2. Now basically this is on demand. As I already said, demand means you have to execute it manually. I will not put any server restriction right now in this case. So this is basically we are done with the description. If we want, you can put here some description here. I'm like recovery model should be full, and so on, whatever. And if you wanted to put some link to check it out, why it has to be what, how to create that thing, you can put some Microsoft link to that thing or some other link if you want, and click OK. And once I have set it, now I have already created policy. I have created a policy that is check recovery model, check database recovery model. So to execute it, I will right click it and I will say evaluate. Now what happens is that basically it says in a places somewhere it succeeded and somewhere it did not succeeded. The where it did not succeed, there is a cross, no, right? And we need to see it, and it says database, okay, report temp db server, and then we have failed here because this database is not going into the full recovery model. As you can see, this is the database. Let's go and to see what the database is and what's the recovery model of that. Okay, properties, and the recovery model is simple, that's why it failed here. But what if I change the pubs database and I say let's make it option equals to simple. So far so good. Now if I evaluate that policy again, the pubs also should fail. See, the pubs has failed now. Pubs has failed. Now let's go and try to do something else. Now suppose I created this database with a property and I make it read only. I go to the options. I say read only equals to true, and once we make it read only equals to true, click OK, and it will say yes, and we have got this database into read only. Now we are going to modify this policy. As you can see, once I click, I want to exclude the database that are read only. So I can actually use this policy I already created, but I will create a new one. I will say exclude database pubs, exclude read only database, only database, or maybe I will say read only database, read only database to be excluded. For us to simple to know, okay, the database is there, and I will say at the read only equals to true, and I will click OK. I can give a description here. I do not want to give it right now. Just for this, click OK. Now, suppose I evaluate this thing. Let's say check the database and evaluate. Now, what has happened? The pubs database still has field. Okay. The reason is, okay, let's say it, description, recovery model. Let's go and see the condition, recovery model equals to true. Okay, well, so far so good, right? So I'm trying to evaluate it. Set the policy detail, the detail equals to model. So this is failed. This should be excluded. Policy selection. Okay. Yeah, again, I would like to say there was some problem, but if you evaluate it again, I have not changed anything. If I evaluate it again, you see that the pubs database doesn't exist anymore. Okay, because it was evaluating the old thing. That's why. Otherwise, there's no problem. Now the only report temp db is there, and again we will go and change the same thing. Nothing. I have not changed anything. If you can see, it already exists. You can see that thing. Now if I go and change this thing to back to the option property option, this time again going back, and I'll make it not read only, but the model is still simple. Read only equals to false. The model is still simple, and I click it OK, and let's evaluate the policy again and see. Let's say evaluate it. Yes, again it has gone. The pubs have come here, isn't it, again? So this is how actually it will. Now there's another condition that needs to be checked. That was that the database is read only, it should be excluded. But in this case, now the database is not read only, so it is there. It is saying that the policy has failed here. But let's go and check it once more. Properties, option. Let's go and make it true. Hit OK, click OK, and maybe we need to refresh it, and it may sometimes create a OK. This time again you can see it is not there, and because it is read only, it has passed the test. Okay, so this is what about the basically how to create a policy, and I extended the policy by excluding the database to the now if I wanted to check the conditions. Okay, now if suppose I go to the condition, and I will say if I want to check the recovery model too, and I can go and check the dependency policy, what policies are dependent on it. I can go and click the check the dependency recovery model and click the view history log also from here. So it will tell what are the policies, when did they fail, and other things it will tell me. So where is the problem? As you can see, it is telling me there is a lot of problems here. It failed many times. Okay, this is basically how you check it out, and click OK. And the other thing is that you can also check the dependency policy here. Also go to the dependency policies, and you can see the view history. Again, you will see a lot of failures in it, and that's how it is. Now, depending upon the once the policy has failed, you know which database is not satisfying the policy, like which database is not in the full recovery model and or read only. The read only database are actually excluded from checking the database, whether the database is in the full recovery model or not. The rest of the database should be actually included. Suppose I actually go and change this time to the recovery model, also to the reporting support MDB to the true. Let's say whether it passes the test. Now if I evaluate, go and evaluate, this time it has passed, isn't it? Now I can see the details here. This is passed, and I can go and even go and check the conditions in the full recovery model. Double click it, description, view history, and you will see this one, this time it passed. That's why it is a green tick given to it. That's about the policies, and let's go and rechange the to the properties, the options, and this is. Now that you know how to create a policy, now let me take you what you can do with the more with the policy. Now let's say if somebody send you the policy, or you wanted to import, Microsoft provides you with a lot of policies. You can import them from your server. If you go and look into the your folder here, you will see, you can see a lot of policies here. Policies can be imported. They are all in XML files. They can be imported in the default situation, whatever it is, or you can import it by with the enable or disable. Suppose if I wanted to take the backup data location, I will say open and replace. If I click the replace, it will replace a duplicate one if it already exists. I'm going to click OK, and now I can see that there is a database backup and data file location, and I can just go up and just see. But before you actually import, you should know that you should always, because this is not it is disabled, so it's better to check up. Once you import, you should see that you have disabled it before importing, and if not, you should have seen it. You disable it and then check up the policy before evaluating anything, and then you can go and evaluate the policy. That's one of the okay. This is basically an XML file. You can import many more together. Also multiple import also you can do. As you can see, I can check the multiple files if I want, read only recovery model, or I can check any other thing, auto close, and I can say open, and I can select this time okay, because I know there are not none of these files, so I may need not check. But in the case if you wanted to replace it to the old ones, you can select it like that. And I see I've imported many files. These are basically XML files. You can open it up in the text editor and see what it is. And the same thing applies to the exporting. Suppose if I wanted to export the full recovery model, I can say export policy, and I can say full recovery model XML save, and you will see that the policies have been exported to the full recovery model has been exported to the XML, and I can actually import it back to some other server if I want it. And this is about the policy. One more thing is very important about the thing is that we can actually use this stored procedure, which will tell us usually when we want to check the conditions, we can actually check it like that. In this thing, I want to check the condition, what policies it depends upon it. So I say dependent policy, I go and view history, and basically I can see the policy that is dependent upon on this thing here, and I can also see the view history from here. The other place you can actually go and view the history is from go to policy management, and you can select the view history, and you can see that there is the whole details of your log file viewer. Okay, this is about the policy management. Now let's actually do one last thing. Instead of actually checking it with the what you call the graphical user interface, there's a stored procedure I have created that you can use it for this stored procedure will actually allow me to pass the parameter of the condition, and it will tell what policies are dependent upon that condition. The stored procedure already created, but in the case you want to create it, it is the syntax is very similar, and then you can execute by passing the parameter the condition name, and in this case I will pass it as, let's say, our first condition we created was okay, full recovery model 2. Okay, so we have the same thing except the full recovery model is there. I hope this doesn't create problems because it's not case sensitive, and execute it. And yes, we have it there. Can see that the policy description is there. Recovery model should be full. Check database recovery model, and that's it. And as you can see, we have covered most of the things. And let me go through the PowerPoint, and I showed you how to export the policies, and you can. By the way, the last thing, before Microsoft releases the SQL Server, they used to call it declarative management framework. If you want to look at, maybe you will find a help in the declarative management framework rather than policy based management. That's it. I think so. Thank you very much for watching.